We had some new CNN polls come out across a variety of battleground states. We'll show you the details of those in a second. David Chalian, who's like their top political guy. I don't know.
What did he say when Biden was inaugurated? He's like, you could feel the warm glow.
Oh, God, the arms of the Capitol like wrapping around you or whatever. Yeah, anyway, that's him. So he looked at some of the numbers in this poll and he said there's some warning signs for Kamala Harris in terms of not fully reconsolidating the winning Biden coalition from 2020. Let's take a listen to his analysis here.
If you look at the white voters without college degrees, this is a Trump base constituency, obviously. You see his huge numbers with this group. You see that this is a trouble sign for Harris. She also, in a place like Georgia, is not doing well with white college-educated voters. She probably wants to make up some ground with white college-educated voters across these battlegrounds as well, Kate.
So a couple of demographic groups where she still has some work to do. Let's go ahead and put up on the screen the actual poll numbers so we can take a look battleground by battleground. And we have the electoral map, which I'll talk through. So just keep this up on the screen. So in most of these battleground states, Kamala Harris is up. So in Wisconsin, up by 6, in Michigan, up by 5, in Georgia, up by 1, which is within the margin of error, Nevada, up by 1 within the margin of error. Pennsylvania tied, and then Arizona is the one where Trump has a clear lead, +5. So the map on the screen here represents, okay, if we gave Trump, it's tied in this poll, let's say we give Trump Pennsylvania and we give him Arizona and North Carolina, what does that map look like? And he actually needs one more state to be able to put himself over the top. This map, reflected by these CNN polls, again, assuming you give Pennsylvania, which is tied to Trump, has Kamala Harris getting 273 and Republicans getting 265. Now, one of the things that we talked about earlier this week, Saagar, is that the ad spending really looks like Trump is going all in on like a Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona play. And that would be enough. If he's able to, Georgia in this poll, Harris only up by 1. If you're able to have Georgia go in your column, that would be enough to put you over the top. But it's kind of the reverse of where the Democrats were under Joe Biden. Under Joe Biden, they had this very narrow, probably non-existent, but very narrow path that they were attempting to pull off of keeping together Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, because he maintained some strength with those industrial Midwestern states that have a larger white voting base, older white voting base. They had this really narrow, very specific path. Trump's path has, with Kamala Harris in now, narrowed significantly, where now they're the ones that are charting this sort of narrow electoral college victory. Now, that doesn't mean they can't pull it off, but in a lot of ways, the tables have turned in terms of the expansiveness, we'll say, of the map and the way the various combinations of getting to 270.
Yes, let's keep this up there, please, because it's actually important. One of the things you learn is that in the Senate races, the Democrats are running way ahead of Kamala Harris. That's bad news for Kamala, but it's also bad news for Trump because in general, split ticket voting is so rare. Nevada, for example, we would have to believe that there are 9% of the electorate that would vote for Jackie Rosen and then not vote for Kamala Harris. So either that's wrong,
it's hard to believe.
Democrats are just going to win by 5 or something like that, or Trump is just going to win and that number is totally incorrect. And so that's something that you should really bake in here. The analysis, look, I get that the poll looks, this scenario is very, intellectually intriguing. I just find it so difficult to believe that Donald Trump could win the state of Pennsylvania, lose Michigan and Wisconsin, lose the state of Georgia, win the state of Arizona, and then also lose the state of Nevada. Like, to me, the swing voter in Arizona and Nevada is the exact same. The swing voter is probably, a white or Latino male who is roughly the same demographic and roughly the same economic status. Same, if I look at Georgia and Arizona, they have a lot of characteristics that they share. For example, it's those white suburban voters in Atlanta and the white suburban voters in Phoenix, which are the ones who swung the vote for Biden last time around. And then in Pennsylvania, I mean, the same demographic that turned against Trump in Wisconsin and in Michigan is exactly which turned against him in Pennsylvania. It was in the mainline suburbs of Philadelphia, where white suburban voters all came out to vote. So what I'm saying is that it's the same demographic basically across all of these places where, why would they be all that different in one state and not the other? Now, of course, margins matter, right? So, theoretically, it is certainly possible. I just find it hard to believe, especially Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, this is the same type of voter.
Yeah.
In every single, in all cases, they share the exact same demographic profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that. It's just the elections are so national now. All of these states tend to trend in the same direction. That's why, Joe Biden, even though it was razor thin in a number of these states, he wins basically all the swing states last time around by narrow margins. They all sort of swing in the same direction. So I think that is true. The one thing you could say is the Sun Belt demographic's a little different than the industrial Midwestern. So you could see, somebody outperforming in one area but not the other. But yeah, I mostly think that these elections are pretty national and tend to, people come up with all these like exotic potential electoral maps, and I just think
that's what I'm
fairly unlikely.
I'm like, you either win or you lose. Like it's like you're either going to win white suburbanites, and that's the other thing. In the national environment that we have today, everyone talks about how we're so divided, and it is true politically, but we're also more connected than literally ever before.
Yeah.
The media diet, like the average white suburbanite living in any place in the country, they're all reading the same newspaper. They're all reading the New York Times. They're all listening to the New York Times, the Daily podcast, or the Interview. Same thing, like the working class voter, they're probably getting stuff on YouTube or, on podcast or listening, to the extent that they interact with their local stuff at all. It's not politics. So I just find it very difficult to believe, given where we are right now, that, you'll swing one way and then lose another. But, again, the margins do matter. So theoretically, you could win Pennsylvania. How much did you win Wisconsin by in 2016? It was like 10,000 votes. No, I'm thinking of Michigan. You won Michigan by 10,000. So yeah, theoretically, you could lose in Michigan and you could win in Wisconsin. I could see something like that. But Pennsylvania and then also losing Georgia, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to believe. But in general, I think we should highlight that, things are not as rosy for Kamala as some people may think.
The margin in Michigan was a little larger than you're thinking. It was 2.78%, so almost 3% of the vote.
I was talking about 2016.
Oh, you're thinking 2016. Oh, okay. Yeah, Biden got 2.8 million, Trump got 2.65 million, so it was roughly 150,000 votes separating the two of them. Let's put this next piece up on the screen. This is Gen Z specific. Poll by NBC News. So it has Kamala Harris winning 50%, Trump at 34%, someone else at 6%, and would not vote at 10%. These are much better numbers than what Joe Biden was doing when he was in the race. However, it still lags by a bit what Joe Biden did in 2020. So on the one hand, you can say, okay, she's underperforming what he did, and obviously every vote was really crucial to get him over the top. On the other hand, you could say, okay, well, maybe she has room to grow here that could benefit her later in the election. We'll have to see. The other thing, Saagar, here that we've taken note of a few times is the gender gap with Gen Z voters is pretty wild. It's bigger than any other demographic group by age. Young women say they're going to vote for Harris by 30 points. Young men only favor her by 4.
Yep.
This is 18 to 29. That is we're used to gender gaps in American politics in modern history. That's nothing new. But this level of a generational gender gap is really pretty wild.
Yeah, I hate to say I told you so. I don't think this is good for the country, but it's just an ongoing dynamic, especially with the bifurcation of culture, and education is probably the most important one. I can't wait until the admission stats, the matriculation stats come out for college this year, because the current prediction on online ed boards is a 60-40 split of girls to women. Girls to men.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like, that's so much bigger. And then if you think about what the Ivy League split is, in the Ivies, and who matter because they eventually become the American elite, it's already 60-40. It could go 66-33, which would be, if you have 1/3. Ratios like that just skew everything. They skew all of our politics, culture, earning potential, etc. It's not necessarily a good thing. We're going to put D4 up on the screen and just look at the Nate Silver. Something he's saying is, quote, setting convention-bound stuff aside, there has been not much positive state polling data entering the system for Kamala Harris lately. And his own projection actually lately has, Trump at 55% in terms of winning the overall electoral college. If you look at Polymarket, which is the largest betting site, they currently have it at Trump 53%, Kamala 46%, which is, that's almost That's a 7-point swing of Trump to Kamala, and that largely tracks Nate Silver. I do believe, by the way, Silver is an advisor to Polymarket. I didn't know that till I read his book, but
I think
he did
that's right.
flag that. Yeah, and just saying.
Yeah, so that's why in Nate's analysis, that's part of why, with his model, which, take it for what it's worth, but he has Kamala Harris ahead in the popular vote, but he favors Trump in the electoral college vote. And these, swing state polls that have been sort of mediocre for her post-convention are a piece of that. And then also his model kind of discounts the polls that come right after a convention because they assume there's some level of temporary sugar high post-convention, which we haven't really particularly seen for her. The polls have basically been stable. So does that mean that they're overstating her support and they're going to come down? Does that mean that this race is just kind of like locked in where it is? And his convention didn't provide a bounce. There were extenuating circumstances there, but her convention also doesn't seem to provide a bounce. Maybe people are just kind of locked into whatever it's going to be. We shall see, but that's where things stand.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.